What's up, everybody? So yesterday, Alec Baldwin's manslaughter trial kicked off. NBCnews.com did a tremendous job at covering it yesterday. I hope they continue to do it the way that they did it. It is linked in the description below, so you can go have a view for yourself. Everything kicked off with the judge opening the trial with jury instructions and by reading a copy of the grand jury indictment against Alec Baldwin. The special prosecutor began opening statements by laying out her argument that Alec Baldwin was reckless while working on the set of Rust. The evidence will show that someone who played make-believe with a real gun and violated the cardinal rules of firearm safety is the defendant, Alexander Baldwin. The special prosecutor stated Baldwin had asked to be given the biggest gun available for the movie. Johnson also told the jury they would hear evidence that the firearm was sold to the Rust set in perfect working order. In laying out the prosecution's case during opening statements, they told the jury that Alec Baldwin routinely failed to do safety checks with the on-set armor. The prosecutor stated that Alec Baldwin was filmed during his required gun safety training, running around shooting his gun. She also said that he didn't want to offend armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed by doing the safety checks that were required every time he was handed a gun while filming on set. The day Hutchinson was shot, Johnson said Baldwin had failed to do an on-set safety check. If that is true, that's pretty bad. He's probably going to use, I'm an experienced actor, I'm this, I'm that, for his reasons of not doing the safety checks. That's just a guess, but that seems like something that he probably was thinking at the time. You will learn that one of the rounds in the revolver was a real round, and the evidence will show that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed then handed the gun to the defendant. And what you will learn is that once again, the defendant failed to do a gun safety check with this armorer. Baldwin empathetically stated that he didn't pull the trigger the day Helena Hutchins was shot, a statement the prosecution is insisting cannot be true. You'll see the video footage of the multiple occasions during which the defendant used his firearm on the set, and each time he fired it, it was working just fine. Johnson told the jury, and in fact, you'll hear evidence that the defendant himself admitted in December of 2021 that this gun didn't have any mechanical problems. Johnson also said the firearm was repeatedly tested, Johnson is the prosecutor, was repeatedly tested by a forensic expert at the FBI who said the gun came to the lab with no apparent defects. Multiple accidental firearm discharge tests show the firearm was in working condition, the prosecutor told the jury. The defense addressed the jury following the state's opening statement, insisting Alec Baldwin committed no crime. One of Alec Baldwin's attorneys shifted attention off Alec Baldwin and focused on the question of how a live bullet ever made its way to this Rust set, which is a tremendous question. There's no doubt that this, in my opinion anyway, I don't think anybody went out there to intentionally murder someone on this set. I don't think Alec Baldwin or Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, I don't believe either one of them went out there to intentionally kill anyone on this movie set. But somebody, on purpose, by mistake, brought a live round, at least one, and that's all it takes, and that's all it took in this case. This live round ended up in this gun and took the life of somebody. So people need to be held responsible for that happening. The defense insisted that there was no evidence that Baldwin had anything to do with the bullet going into the gun or that he failed to abide by the cardinal rules of gun safety. He was an actor, playing the role of Harlan Russ. An actor playing a character can act in ways that are lethal that just aren't lethal on the movie set. These cardinal rules, they're not cardinal rules on a movie set. Interesting. So many people in the comments of these videos and online on these pages disagree with that. The scene inside the church that was supposed to be filmed during the fatal shooting of Helena Hutchins on the Rust set was played for the jury by Alec Baldwin's defense. The video shows Baldwin playing the character being brought into the church injured. Baldwin's character is then approached by two men pointing guns at him. "So whip it out," Baldwin is heard asking before pulling the gun out from behind his jacket. Baldwin does this 2 times before the crew cuts. The Rust scene was played on monitors facing the jury, though some jurors appeared more attentive than others. Some appeared not to be looking at the screen directly, while others were attentive and actively taking notes as the video was played by Alec Baldwin's defense. The defense described the Rust set prior to the shooting as relaxed, and that the cast and crew were assured multiple times that Baldwin's gun was cold. No one had any idea that this venomous, toxic element had been inserted into this magic they were creating, but it did. It entered that place, it killed an amazing person, it wounded another, and it changed lives forever. Blame was placed on the armorer and David Hall, the set's first assistant director. Everybody on a movie set has a role. The armorer armors, the director directs, the actor acts. They work in harmony, but they have a division of responsibility. The prosecution and defense approached the bench briefly for the 3rd time during the defense's opening statements. The defense was telling the jury that the Rust crew members who may testify could experience a natural grief while revisiting what they should have done to prevent the shooting. The prosecution objected, but the defense quickly returned to his opening remarks. As I was saying, the witness in their grief will look for reasons to try and make sense of this tragedy. None of them knew or should have known about the lethal bullet, the defense states. Baldwin's defense ended its opening by insisting that there is no evidence of homicide. The defense stated that although the jury may see repeated video of Baldwin handling a gun to frame him as bad, there is no way the actor could have stopped a live bullet that shouldn't have been on the set from firing. No one could have imagined or expected an actor to do that, so just remember that truth. The state called its first witness to the stand, Santa Fe police officer Nicholas LaFleur. LaFleur was working with the sheriff's department at the time of the Rust shooting and was the first law enforcement officer at the scene after the 911 call. LaFleur testified that he had concerns about the witnesses speaking to one another after the shooting, potentially tainting their statements about the events. LaFleur then instructed Baldwin to stop talking and stood next to him while he was detained. Video from LaFleur's lapel camera showed him later speaking with other witnesses. Is this an ideal way to separate someone from witnesses? The prosecutor asked LaFleur. After looking at it, probably not, but that's what happened, he answered. The defense began cross-examining LaFleur, the former deputy who was first on scene with the focus of a man's self-admitted mistakes. The defense asked LaFleur about his own admission of mistakes, with LaFleur agreeing that hindsight is 20/20. The defense also tried to impeach LaFleur regarding some of his statements, but was interrupted with an objection from the prosecution. After lunch, Baldwin's defense attorney ended a cross-examination, questioning LaFleur whether it was truly fair to say Baldwin defied his order not to speak to others. LaFleur told the defense that while he did tell Baldwin not to speak to witnesses, he did not repeatedly give the order. He wasn't really disobeying police orders, was he, sir? To an extent, yes, LaFleur responded. The prosecution questioned its second witness, Timoteo Benavidez, a retired lieutenant with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, to establish a chain of custody for the revolver that fired the bullet that killed Helena Hutchins. Benavidez told the prosecution that he secured the gun from the on-set armorer and made sure there were no more rounds in the revolver before he placed it in the front seat of his patrol car. He described it as the most secure location he had at the time. Benavides took the ammunition from the armorer's cart and placed it in his car. Baldwin's defense previously tried to have the case dismissed, saying that the state damaged the gun Baldwin used on set during testing. The judge denied the motion, though she instructed the prosecution to establish the destructive nature of firearm testing, the resulting loss and relevance and import to the jury. Despite the high-profile nature of this case, the first day of Alec Baldwin's trial has been relatively lackluster as the state's attorneys attempt to establish the investigative progress following the Rust shooting. The first witness was brought on to focus mainly on the law enforcement's response to the scene, including how witnesses were questioned and evidence was collected. Baldwin's defense kept the cross-examinations relatively brief, often trying to shift witnesses away from Alec Baldwin and onto the movie set's crew. The defense repeatedly shifted responsibility for on-set safety to Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer, and Halls, the first assistant director. Opening statements hinted at more to come. However, the Rust crew members and more forensic experts are expected to testify. The judge sent the jury home as the first day of trial ends slightly ahead of schedule. And this is the main points talked about here. Prosecutor began opening statements by laying out the argument that Alec Baldwin was reckless while he was working on the set of Rust. The prosecution told the jury that Baldwin routinely failed to do safety checks with the on-set armorer. The prosecution said Baldwin was filmed during his required gun safety training, running around shooting his gun. The defense insisted there is no evidence Baldwin had anything to do with pulling the bullet in the gun that killed the cinematographer. The defense said that no one on the set knew the gun had a live bullet and that the cast and crew were assured multiple times the gun was cold. Baldwin is charged with involuntary manslaughter over his role in the deadly incident that happened on October 21st, 2021. He faces up to 18 months in prison if convicted. So that ends the first day. Not a lot going on. A couple witnesses called. It's going to get more interesting as more witnesses get called to testify. I'm very interested to see where this goes. I've read so many comments, so many stories where gun enthusiasts and on-set movie people, it's like 50-50. The gun set people think you should never, this is rule one of gun safety, you never point a gun at anybody. Just, it's absolutely crazy that a live bullet ended up in this gun and this happened. It's absolutely tragic, and people need to be held responsible. So far, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed has been held responsible, but do you think Alec Baldwin is that other person that needs to be held responsible? Let me know. Leave some comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.